For those who grew up poor, what did you consider a luxury? Going out to eat at a restaurant. A few years ago, my wife and I were at a nice seafood place for our anniversary. As I was looking at the menu, the table across from us was being served, and a kid who couldn't have been older than 11 had a $50 plate of crab legs put in front of him. First, no chance my parents would have ever taken me to a place like that. Second, no chance my parents would allow me to even look at any section of a menu above $8. New shoes. I got treated like shitty when I could get shoes, because I was still poor and could only get knockoff Chucks. People are FCK faces. Oh well. Pancakes. But now as an adult and knowing how cheap pancakes really are, I think my mom just didn't want to make them. My family didn't make too much money when I was younger, so we had pancakes almost every day for 6 people. They definitely are pretty cheap. Eating out was definitely a luxury. Being able to get candy at a store. New school supplies. Brand name food. Brand name anything really. Right? Reminds me of a funny story. Back when starter jackets were a huge thing, I had asked for one for Christmas. Dallas Cowboys of course. On Christmas Day, I got a Dallas Cowboys pullover jacket that was a knockoff brand. I mentioned it not being a starter jacket and my mom replied, "Oh, it is. It's just part of their sister company." Double quote. I wasn't sure if I should believe her or not, but I said okay. Fast forward to first day back from Christmas break and I got some comments about my jacket not being a starter brand. I replied, "Oh, it is. It's just part of a sister company," and the kids were like, "Oh, okay. Cool." And that's how I got some cool points in 5th grade. Until the age of 12. I thought that you weren't allowed to buy things that weren't on sale. My mom only bought things when they were on sale and or she had a coupon. So I thought that the non-sale items weren't being sold. Same. My mom has a funny story about that one. She says very little me was with her at the store, and I kept asking if random items were for sale. She'd be confused but would say yes, and I'd ask if we could get them. She'd say no. It took her a while to figure out that I had confused the terms for sale and on sale. I knew we only bought things that were on sale, so I was asking if each thing was on sale before I asked for it. For my school's Spirit Week, they had a thrift shop day, where most everyone dressed in old ratty clothes. All the weirdest stuff they could find in a thrift shop. Needless to say, as someone whose clothes were 80% second-hand, it was an eye-opener. Reminds me of when my undergrad volunteer club had an undeserved community event in the area I was from, lol. I walked home after the event and didn't tell my friends. They were so worried when they didn't see me on the bus, but I had no clue until I checked my phone and saw 20+ missed calls. Brand name cereal was for the upper class. Man. Every time I saw Reese's Puffs on top of the fridge, I knew tomorrow was gonna be a good day. New clothes. I grew up pretty poor, no TV, no toys, but had a Sears catalog. My dad got in a serious accident when I was in 4th grade and almost lost his life. He won a small settlement from the community college he was working at and I was able to buy new clothes for the first time in my life. Before this, all I ever had were hand-me-downs from my cousin and donation clothes from the church. Most were worn to the point of having patches on the knees. The worst part about getting new clothes for the first time is I felt terrible the whole time picking out new clothes because I always felt like a financial burden to my parents. I remember going to Miller's Outpost and picking out typical 80s clothes, OP, TNC, etc. It's funny how growing up poor affects my everyday choices. For better or worse. I'll never outgrow some of the feelings I had as a poor kid, and I feel for any kid who has to endure a childhood of poverty. It will affect them and their choices for the rest of their life. Electricity, lol. Thanks for paying the bill this month, Mom. I remember when they disconnected our electricity during winter. After my mother paid, it still took them a month to turn it back on. We put the mattress in front of the chimney and we would boil water to wash ourselves. My mother would send me to some of my friends' houses to shower. I still remember the shame. It was a very difficult time psychologically. It was also not the only time. McDonald's. Clothes that fit. Soda. Having a toy that other kids thought was cool. Soda. Or any drinks other than water and juice. Lemonade. Iced tea. I feel so guilty when I buy them now. Even though I can afford them now. Having my own bedroom. Hey man. I'm 32. I went from sleeping in the living room to sleeping with my girlfriend in our room. I've never had my own room yet. Though I guess having a man cave is a decent alternative. My grandma would take me to Chuck E. Cheese on my day and give me a bunch of tokens. That tea was Lux. Charles Entertainment Cheese. A poor orphaned rat who never got to celebrate his birthday, so now he has a place where every kid can have a birthday. Air conditioning. Sometimes we had a jacked up old window unit that would cool down my parents' room on the hottest of summer nights, and we would sleep in sleeping bags on their floor. Sometimes it was broke. Sometimes it just wasn't hot enough to justify running it. Never during the day though. That's what the library was for. I used to go through hundreds of feet of all kinds of vine, thorn, brush, plenty of poison oak too. Be covered in burrs, chiggers, ticks to get at wild blackberries. They had thorns too, and fill my milk jugs with them. They were down in a low boggy place that was just inaccessible. No trail, no openings. Just a hell wall of green that led up to some swamp bog here and there. So plenty of mosquitoes too. Because my folks sure weren't buying them by the pint, not even as good as the wild ones, and once I had tasted them, I f***ing wanted them. Those things were my girls before puberty. I'm sure I went through more to get my snack of them than I ever did for anything in my life, and I wasn't even a fat kid. I just... obsession. Come back home all bloodied and scratched up, my dad telling me I looked like I jumped inside a sack full of cats. Helping himself to my jugs of treasures. Mom with the Neosporin. The cure for it all. Pop-Tarts and toaster strudels. Oh man. Toaster strudels were like living a dream when we had them. They never had enough frosting though. I always wanted at least twice as much per toaster strudel. My mother used to consider any kind of cereal a luxury. They only had one box a month. My mom could somehow only find a way to afford Raisin Bran. I didn't try the fancy ones like Reese Puffs or Fruit Loops until I moved out on my own. Chef Boyardee. Not even kidding. Edit. I still eat ravioli on my birthday. Better ravioli. But ravioli nevertheless. Restaurants were definitely somewhere at the top of my list. I lived through the tail end of apartheid in South Africa, so we weren't allowed into restaurants. Also, non-iceberg lettuce. Dairy products. Like a full glass of milk. Cheese. Cottage cheese. Yogurt. Flavored milk. Lawns. A dining table and family meals at the table. Vacations that didn't involve staying with relatives. That's tough, man. How are you doing now? I grew up post-apartheid. Poor and white, and I have to say it still looks better than anything you must have experienced. Renting a movie from Blockbuster the first weekend of every month. My brother and I got to pick any movie we wanted as long as it wasn't rated R. On really special nights. We even got a 2-liter bottle of Sprite for the family to share. I got pretty excited to be given my own bed. Same. Slept on an old futon for about 10 years as a kid. I could feel the metal bars through the mattress. My sister had a double-sized bed, however. I only got to sleep in a double-sized bed once I moved out of my parents' place. Being allowed to turn on the heat during the winter. And also being able to hire a professional to fix broken appliances. Plumbing. etc. I think that's what pushed me to be the jack of all trades type. If something broke, calling a professional was out of the question. Dad would fix it. Sometimes shittily. But he'd do it. Definitely those types of experiences that shape you as a person. Christmas presents. I was a kid, and one year for Christmas when I was young, Before I could recognize that I was making any kind of larger point, I said that I wanted my parents to just give my presents to the kids who didn't have anything. But I didn't know that I was one of those kids. I wonder what they thought when a kid said that to them. I wonder if it hurt them or inspired them. The really important thing is relationships. The people in our lives aren't some kind of replacements for things. People are the most valuable things to us. FCK the garbage. Don't buy anything this Christmas. Just spend it with your loved ones and genuinely express your love for them. That's the value. Things are garbage. People make a difference. Buying new clothes. The days I justify ordering all kinds of dumb stuff online, but I've always felt a mental block on buying new clothes. It feels like an unjustified luxury because I always got by on second-hand clothes and free t-shirts. Between grandma and mum, they made all the boys' shirts and all the girls' dresses. We also got the hand-me-down clothes from within the family and cousins. I had one cousin who pretty much got all my hand-me-down clothes. She said several times how great it was to get handmade clothes. Owning books. I was wondering if anyone else had this experience. I was really into the famous 5 by Enid Blyton, but my local library was run by lefties who hated Enid Blyton, so there weren't many in stock. My mum promised me she'd buy the ones the library didn't have. It took 2 years to get the missing titles, but the thrill of having books to keep was amazing. 40 years later, I still get excited about buying books. And I try to be a better librarian than the one in the local library. Having breakfast. It's gotten to the point where I can't eat in the morning because my body is so used to waiting. Holy sh*t, is this why I wait to eat so long? My GF always makes fun of me for waiting until my stomach hurts before I even think of eating. I don't know if anyone can relate, but in about 3rd maybe 4th grade, me and my twin brother had a music class where we were both required to buy a recorder. Like a plastic flute thing. Well, my mom said we didn't have the money, so my twin brother and I tore the whole house up in search of $6 for 2 recorders. We brought a Ziploc bag full of change, pennies, nickels, dimes, etc. I think the teacher felt sorry for us, cause she paid for our recorders when the rest of the students left the room. Gave us the Ziploc bag back. Thank you, MRS. Albrecht. Hershey's chocolate syrup. I was used to a 8 to 12 ounces glass of milk with a feather touch squeeze of drops of chocolate add when I was around 6 or 7. It would tinge the milk a light malt color, but that's all mom would allow for years. 13 years later, my baby sister is old enough to have her vocalized demands and the like. I'm old enough to serve her while mom ignores her. But we're doing so much better financially, so we always have a bottle of syrup on hand, and she gets the big 24 ounces tumblers of milk, and I have to squeeze enough syrup out to make the chocolate dark muddy brown, or she cries I'm ripping her off. Having a fridge full of food. We fell in some limbo zone of we didn't make enough money to afford more than cheap staples for food. But we made too much to qualify for food stamps. We were a 6-person household. My senior year of high school. Our circumstances changed and we qualified for food stamps. I have never seen a fuller fridge. We ate like kings compared to what we did for the previous 17 years of my life. Sitting down with your family for dinner each night. Air conditioning. Television. A heater that wasn't one of those cheap little dollar store models that smelled like burning metal. Matching dinnerware. Cups made of glass. Reliable internet. A clothes dryer. Being driven to school. Or living in an area where you could safely walk to school. Sounds like you had an upbringing like mine. Parents had a business that was not doing well, so we often stayed there while they worked through the night. We never had dinner as a family. We ate when we were hungry enough to make something. Had a TV. Old Rankarina. Heaters were a big no-no because they used too much electrify. But there were heat presses at the factory, so in winter we would take our little mattresses and sleep on the concrete next to those. No clothes dryer for the same reason. We got driven to school because there was no bus from the industrial estate where the business was. A new winter coat. I don't remember having a new winter coat until I was probably 14 or 15. They had always been hand-me-downs from my cousins. They were usually at least 10 years old by the time I got them and the stuffing would be all clumped up. I almost never even had winter coats since all my older siblings were female. I would just wear a decent hoodie over a ton of layers of old clothes. When I got my first new coat, I experienced warmth like I had never felt before and it was so amazing. It's a long time ago, but when I was young, about 6-8 years old, back in the early 1960s we had meat once a week for the family dinner, on Sundays. Actual real milk. My mum used to buy something called 5 pints. It was powdered milk that you added cold water to and shook to make milk. I remember the lumps of it in my cereal. Taking a bath. I mean we bathed every night. But it was by heating up water that we would go to the park down the road to get in 5-gallon jugs and filling up a mop bucket to wash off with. Staying over at a friend or family member's house and getting to take an actual shower was amazing though. Staying at someone's house who wasn't poor, like a relative or friend. Their house was also so clean. Beautiful. Pictures on the wall. Knickknacks on the counter. And carpet you could play on because it was clean. I spent my entire teenage years hiding where I lived. School parties where everyone brought something to share for lunch. If you don't bring something, you don't get to participate. Double quote. I brought 2 carrots after not being able to afford school lunch for 2 years. Even the teacher laughed at me. My young self just decided that day that some people don't deserve lunch. I know the feeling. Our language classes always had potluck day where kids would bring dishes from whatever language the class was. I took French for 3 years and 2 of those years, my family couldn't afford to participate and my teacher decided to let me participate after she saw how much food everyone else brought. But she made a point to berate me for it. I didn't eat out of guilt. Well, maybe a cup or soda or something. KFC takeout was the best night of the year growing up. Only got it once a year, but man was it the best night ever. I currently live in what is called the ghetto. What I consider a luxury is the following. Not hearing gunshots for more than 3 days. Full price clothes. From actual retail stores and not thrift shops and food banks. No hate. You can get some badass deals there. Close bracket. Actual name brand food items. Like Lucky Charms. And not marshmallow smacks. Going out to eat. And getting to have juice or soda. When you move into a new house and the floor and ceiling is actually in pretty decent condition. Like. The euphoria I feel is immaculate. A hot shower. Cold showers were always available. But when you scraped enough cash to get some diesel fuel and get a burner to kick on long enough to have a hot shower, man. Absolutely nothing better. Grew up pretty poor in Arkansas in a trailer. I literally got a door to my bedroom for Christmas one year. It probably still was the best gift I ever received. My school had a uniform where girls had to wear skirts. I was wearing my brother's socks and they had loose elastic because of which they would slip and bundle around my ankles. My teacher asked me to change the socks and I told her that we were poor and we could not buy new socks. So yeah. Socks. I have a few. Eating at a restaurant. Having our own washer and dryer. Living in a home instead of an apartment. Living in either one doesn't give a sign if you're above the poverty line, but at the time I thought it did. I don't know if some of these still are luxuries, but as far as I can tell, they are not. Sandwich meat. I remember all too vividly getting out the bread to make a sandwich and being able only spread mustard on the bread and calling it a sandwich. Also, firewood. Growing up in a house with no heat, firewood was not only a luxury but a necessity. We'd spend the spring and summer gathering wood and slowly splitting and stacking it to burn throughout the winter. Poor planning could lead to cold mornings and a desperate search for free timber. I remember driving around in a truck looking for people that cut down a tree and put the wood on the side of the road so we could take it home and split it. I didn't see my dad much, but sometimes when I spent the weekend with him he would take me to the dollar store and let me pick out 2 or 3 toys. I thought he was the most generous dad in the world. My mom couldn't afford much and rarely bought me toys, so I was always overcome with awe. I didn't understand how cheap a dollar was at 4 or 5. Going places during school vacation. The kids would be all like, what? You've never been to this amusement park? No. Trisha. My family doesn't even have a car. Which is another luxury to me. My mom had 7 children in 10 years. 1950 to 1960. I remember having a whole bottle, those smallish glass ones that came out of the machine for 10 cents, of soft drink to myself instead of sharing one bottle between all 7 of us. I was perhaps 5 years old. I still remember this as the best thing ever. Any new technology, like video game consoles, iPods, internet, cell phone, etc. New jeans, bacon, chocolate milk, string cheese, Oreos, new coloring pencils, special erasers, like the ones with the covers, going to the dentist, braces, multiple cars for a household and even just a house, not an apartment, especially the ones with enough rooms for each person to sleep in and multiple levels, people going on vacancy, or skiing, or skating, or other activities that cost money, bicycles, takeout, like McDonald's and Subway, fruit roll-ups, gushers, and the like. Coming from a kid who had to eat the packaged PB&J for lunch every day cause we couldn't afford the regular lunch card. Staying at a hotel. The first time I stayed at one I was 10, I think. I still love going to hotels because I feel like that's luxury. Being fed on a Sunday. Single parent family on benefits money would always run out on a Sunday, no food left in the cupboards. She always had her ciggies though. Having a bedroom to yourself. I can't recall a single time before I had my own place that I ever had a bedroom to myself. At first it was me and my grandmother because my mom was out drinking. Then my grandmother died and my mom had another baby which me and him shared a room in a small apartment. Then I couch hopped and stayed at friend's house in my teenage years. Then I went to live with my dad who was also poor and lived with my grandmother in a rundown trailer and he slept on a foam mattress in the living room and I slept on a love seat. I'm 25 now and I do really well for myself overall. I have a nice 2-bedroom, 2-bath house. I've got 2 cars that are reliable. And I have a girlfriend and little boy that I love more than anything. I grew up in a really bad position honestly. So being able to provide for my son the way my parents never did for me really gives me a sense of pride and accomplishment. I don't want him to ever wonder where he's going to sleep or to have to worry about anything that I ever had to growing up. To this day me and my mother don't have a good relationship and my dad is trying to be better and be a part of my son's life. Giving him the things I never had is enough for me. Ole. In middle school I was on reduced school meals so it would be $40 for lunch. So my parents would always give me 2 quarters every morning for lunch. Now the cafeteria would also sell cookies which wasn't part of the lunch set for $50 each. So saving $10 each day I could afford 1 cookie by Friday's lunch. Good times. Being poor in the Philippines meant no hot water for showers. This was manageable during dry season since it was always hot. But during rainy seasons when it would cool outside more it really sucked. I just never enjoyed showers. When I moved to the US I had hot waters and baths. Holy crap. I now love getting clean. Wasn't poor but grew up cheap. Buffets where you could get anything you wanted since nothing cost extra, even if you had to gorge yourself to avoid a eat my money's worth lecture. Getting candy outside of a holiday. I don't think I realized that you could just buy candy as a kid. Some of these replies hurt my soul. I hope you all are doing better now. A garbage disposal. A working dishwasher. Having sodas, good snacks in the home. Healthcare. A canned day breakfast. I don't know if you have these in American or not but it's basically beans, mushroom, sausage and potato in a can. My parents had little to no money growing up and for whatever reason I used to really love these and I was the only one in the family who enjoyed them. Every now and then I'd open the cupboard to find one sat there waiting for me, and the happiness was unreal, as I know these things used to be like a cute one. 50 a can. Oddly, I can't bring myself to eat them now I'm grown up. Not sharing a 25-cent Coke from Walmart with 6 people, and the idea that bacon or pizza was something that you could have all you wanted of. And X200B. And that first time when you realized you could buy anything you wanted at Goodwill. And it wouldn't affect your life. That's the first time I felt rich. This might dumb. But Tupperware. My mom would pack my lunch using old food containers like yogurt, sour cream, salsa jars, etc. And I always got made fun of. I started packing my own lunch as soon as I was able. Fresh milk. Mostly we had canned milk for cereal, and if you dare, drink it. Also, beef steak was a luxury. Until I was 13. I only had bites of steak. At 13 we were invited to a barbecue where they served top sirloin steaks, and I got my own steak. It was not until I was 16 and bought my own steak that I had steak again. Cheese Whiz was always my first luxury purchase if I had any extra cash. A tiny bit makes every poverty meal so much better. Coffee, toilet paper and tampons are the worst things to run out of. A comfortable bed. I had to sleep in the floor. Broken spring mattresses. Memory foam. And couches. But having a new unused mattress made a huge difference between school mornings sucking and school mornings not sucking as much. Lunchables lol. My parents never knew why we wanted to get those for our school field trips. I remember being extremely jealous when kids pulled them out during those trips, especially the pizza ones. Burning a slice of toast and thinking no big deal and tossing it and putting fresh bread in. As opposed to scraping the worst burn off or picking bits of blue mold off to eat it. Weirdly specific mayhaps. But taking your pets to the vet annually. We couldn't even really afford emergencies when they happened. We'd be cutting in clothes with the groceries 4 weeks after. And upstairs. As a kid I remember hearing a friend say they were too lazy to run downstairs for something and thinking I'd kill to be able to run downstairs. New school things. Things like a new bag or new pencils were a massive thing to me. Because you don't grow out of them. My mum was choosing to spend her free money on me to buy me a new bag. I think it only happened in my first year of secondary school and then halfway through, but it was so nice to have something clean and new to use. I remember crying at about 8 that all my friends' moms would give them chocolates or sweets after school for the walk home, and we never got anything. The next day we had a Snickers and I was so shocked. I still remember that day so clearly. My mum was so happy. A Nintendo. My parents would rent one for special occasions like birthdays. It was usually for just one night. Which looking back kind of sucked because that wasn't enough time to master Duck Hunt or Super Mario Bros. Back then though it was a big deal. Being able to go to the store and buy just like 1 or 2 things for a recipe when I need them. Growing up we relied on food stamps to eat and didn't have dependable transportation, so we'd get all our groceries at the first of the month, and if we ran out of something we ran out. Hamburger hot dog buns. White bread or rice for all vehicles of meals. Potatoes took too long to cook. All the snacks from the commercials. Fruit by the foot. Gushers. Etc. AC heater was definitely on the list, with the respective powered lawnmower snowblower for all the childhood labor. Real lunch meat and cheese on sandwiches, instead of bologna and American singles. Butter instead of margarine. Whipped cream instead of Cool Whip. Going to a movie theater and especially. Gasp. Buying any food there. Riding in a car with leather seats. Buying clothes and taking them home that day, not on layaway. Basically any name brand foods and canned soda. Clothes and shoes with durability were the really rare one. I went through high school with shirts I'd had for years. $7 jeans that never fit right. And the $5 knockoff Vans from Walmart. I remember being really excited when I got a pair of cheap combat boots for my 16th birthday that were a whole $25. Stroke. Store-bought food and cable TV. We often ate what came from the food bank. Moving around so much from home to a friend or family member's house, I would sometimes get to watch cable TV. I loved Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. Now I've worked hard and have more nice things than I ever thought. I'm very blessed. Not eating at the soup kitchen. My mom is an addict and the only thing she spent money on food wise was cereal, milk and mac and cheese. Her favorite things. During the week my mother, brother, younger sister and I would get free meals at the local men's shelter for the homeless. During the weekend we got nothing unless we wanted cereal or mac and cheese. Cable. I always get asked about certain shows people remember from childhood. People having such fond memories and then being surprised I don't remember the show. I forget myself. And have to remember to ask, was it on cable? Double quote. I didn't eat a delivery pizza until I was a senior in high school. We lived out in the middle of nowhere. And I thought a Jack's was as good as it was. And we had to share it as a family of 4. Getting a pack of toothpaste before having to cut the thing open and scrape the insides out. Same with any other product. Also having your own towel. Now that our family is in a better place, it's amazing to have a couple of towels that I have in the drawers. Eating out because you want to and not because it's cheaper than cooking. My family still has habits of sneaking sauce packets even though we don't need them. We have a drawer with sauce packets and napkins. Hot water would be the biggest. Having more than 1-2 pairs of pants. A fridge full of food no matter how far away from payday you are. Steak from the grocery store when it's not a special occasion and a cut fancier than I have round or sirloin. A barbecue grill to cook said steak. A sandwich with meat on it instead of just margarine and cheap cheese. Most of all, I appreciate anything of value never disappearing when money gets tight. Butter. Real. Actual butter. I grew up on margarine at home. And the only place I got to have butter was during visits with my grandparents. Who as it turned out only bought the cheap, nearly colorless store brand stuff. But to me it was still rich people food. Funny thing is, I have trouble with good quality butter now because the bright yellow color reminds me too much of margarine. Go figure. Buying a hot dog at a hot dog stand. I've been poor all my childhood and during uni. But when I graduated and got a job, and my situation slowly improved. But I still remember the thrill of even daring to enter a coffee shop or God forbid a restaurant. Even now. 10 years later with a pretty comfortable middle class paycheck, I have to remind myself that I can absolutely afford buying a coffee on my way running errands or buying new hoodie. Just because I like it. Not because I have literally nothing to wear. I've been wearing hand-me-down clothes all my childhood and teenage years. So I taught myself to be numb to the subtle feeling of shame about how shabby I look. 2. The poor childhood still has an impact on me. And I have to fight my own mind sometimes. I remember in 8th grade on my birthday at school, one of my teachers asked me what gifts I had gotten. He asked in front of the whole class. I excitedly shared that I would be getting contact lenses. My parents let me choose one thing that I wanted and I desperately wanted to stop wearing the broken glasses I had. Which I usually didn't wear. One of the boys in class made a comment like contacts are present. And my teacher had to explain to him again in front of everyone that for some families they are too expensive not to be a luxury. After that experience I worked 2 and 3 jobs in high school so I could buy myself and my brothers the things we needed. The first thing I bought with my money from my first job as a hostess at a diner was a queen size bed because my twin mattress was about 20 years old and at 15 I was having back problems and issues with rusted springs poking me. Shoes is a definite one. I remember being so glad I could get a pair of Nikes because my mom would be buying a pair of shoes too and it was buy one, get one half off at the shoe carnival. Then I remember being told to only wear them when I was at school and to wear my old shoes that were basically falling apart, holes in the soles included, when I'd go play outside or whatever.